From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Alexis, codenamed Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It's the top of the week, so Monday evening, we are bringing you some fresh, baked, strange news. Shout out to everybody listening to this in a Cybertruck. Be safe.
Please.
Shout out to everybody who's been in unusual, lone circumstances. We were talking a little bit off air, and we thought we might do just a quick cavalcade, old school Strange News Daily at the top. We talked about investor passports like a while ago, right? Did we ever do an episode on this? I don't think we did.
I don't believe so.
No.
Doesn't quite ring a bell. I'd love to be caught up.
Yeah, so I know we talked about this hanging out off air. There are always, with every election cycle, there's always going to be several groups of people in the U.S. who say, well, if so-and-so is president or so-and-so does something, then I'm moving. Me and the family are getting out of the U.S. We're going to some other country. For many of us in the audience today who may indeed be expats, you know that the process is often much more involved than, you can't just go online and then click a box. It takes a while. And so it may be of interest to some of us to find that the more wealthy people in the U.S. and the world are building a thing called passport portfolios. Let's go to Robert Frank for CNBC, who wrote this just about a week ago. Apparently, around the globe, very well-to-do people are collecting a second or even a third or a fourth passport, like actual citizenship, international citizenship stuff. And I think it's safe to say, without putting any of us on the spot, that we as a group, we're all kind of like one passport folk, right? Yeah, we don't have to say it on air.
Oh, on a good day. Yeah.
On a good day.
Well, hell, I mean, I think I maybe mentioned I had a child's passport, not like I was using a child's passport, but I only just recently got a grown-up passport, and I did not have the one from my, early youth. And so it was a big old pain in the butt to get a new one when you don't have the original, because it's like you have to fill out a different form and it can take a little longer. But I've been using my new big boy passport every chance I get. But yes, only the one. When I think of multiples, I guess I think of that secret hidden drawer full of loose diamonds and like multiple identities or like various passports,
I literally just opened my secret hidden drawer and pulled out my passport. Yeah. I'm not kidding, no.
What's your identity on that one, Matt?
What does this say? Walton Goggins.
Love that.
Oh, good. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
It's weird because before the global pandemic, a U.S. passport would get you into about 184 countries, which is awesome. But during the pandemic, that number plummeted to like 29 countries. You could still get in, but you would need to jump through additional hoops or be quite wealthy. And that's because the U.S. is home to around 4% of the world's population, but also had about 1/4 of total COVID-19 cases. So all the rest of the world was looking at this and thinking, what a dumpster fire. We can't let these people in. I did some research we might want to save for an episode in the future, but it is surprisingly easy to just buy your way into citizenship in some countries. Like a lot of Caribbean countries like St. Kitts and Nevis or St. Lucia. Turkey is one of the most exciting. If you are a billionaire listening to this and you're thinking of moving to New Zealand, I like where your head's at. It's a good decision. Unfortunately, other people got there first. Like billionaires are pretty much buying that country now.
Wasn't that the deal? We talked about certain countries that were very, very difficult to get, dual citizenship in, and that was one of the toughest.
Yeah, it's one.
You
of
have to show that you're committing a certain amount of your income to things that better the economy, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Right now, the top destinations for what they're calling supplemental passports amidst wealthy Americans are in the following order: Portugal, Malta, Greece, and Italy. And that's coming to us from a firm in London that just does this called Henley and Partners. I don't know, man. It still feels kind of okay. It feels kind of unfair because these people aren't, they're, if we are practicing meritocracy, they're not necessarily better or worse than anybody else who wants to move, but they're cutting the line, because they can just throw money at the problem. But the main disturbing thing about this, at least what we could say is the main disturbing thing, is that this is picking up not because it's a cool trend, but because the haves of American society are increasingly persuaded that something bad is on the way. Like they think the house may not burn down, but it is in ever greater danger of burning down. So they want to be able to hop on that plane to Malta. All you need is like 300,000 euros in real estate to move to Malta. If that was like the main holdup, that's the number. Does that
shield you from prosecution in any way? Or are there particular I know there are particular destinations you can't be extradited from, but like what's the list of like, I'm very rich and I'm scared that the IRS or the, SEC is coming for me. Where do I F off to?
Right. That's a great question. That's what we should cover in the episode, because sometimes people have just, they're not, business tycoons, but they've saved up money throughout their lives and they want to retire some other place. And so they can get that investment passport as retirement. So we're not saying all these people are like Monty Burns level evil, but the society, as we've mentioned, and as we'll explore in this week's listener mail, society in the developed world is aging at a rather precipitous rate. I mean, we know this. People who tend to be considered elderly are finding life increasingly difficult for a number of reasons. I mean, even FBI agents are going broke now because of housing cost, which is a national security concern. I don't know, like the main story I wanted to share, this is kind of a setup, is do you guys remember Madam Bell? From like the days of TV, like you'd see the blue screen and the call-in number, like dial 1-900.
Like a psychic kind of situation?
Yeah.
Because there was also it was Dionne Warwick did it for a minute, and an amazing singer. But then there was also Miss Cleo. I remember Miss Cleo very well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I believe she was a very famous fraud. I believe there's a whole story behind her thing she got in some big trouble, if I'm not mistaken.
She had a brick and mortar on Cheshire Bridge, Madam Bell.
Yes, I went to that one. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a great date idea, but it is.
It's a really bad reading.
That's a road in Atlanta, our city, Atlanta, that's known for what, guys? I don't know. Cheshire Bridge.
Adjacent to some awesome food.
There you go. And other things.
And sex trafficking. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is true. Madam Bell, to our knowledge, is not involved with that. But funny story, when I visited that psychic on a date many years ago, I was also surprised to learn, this shouldn't have been surprising, I was surprised to learn that there was an original Madam Bell. It was not the person I spoke with, who was found dead, face down in a puddle at a hotel several years before I visited that Madam Bell. So it's probably a franchise, right? That's more likely than a ghost. Right?
Or identity theft situation?
Or identity theft. The thing is, for a lot of the more skeptical folks in the crowd, you might say visiting a psychic, a fool and their money are soon parted, right? And you got scammed. But if you go in there and you just think of it as a cultural experience, then you're paying for a good time, right? And you could go compare notes later. And a lot of people find a lot of meaning in consulting with folks who call themselves psychics. And that's where we run into the weirdest story I found recently. There's a guy named Patrice Runner, a dual citizen of Canada and France. He's got both passports. He's 57. He just got convicted of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and wire fraud and money laundering through, quote, a massive psychic mass mailing fraud scheme.
Does that mean he sent all the fraudulent letters with his mind, man?
I mean, does that mean he saw the conviction coming, as you might imagine?
One
a genuine
would
psychic would.
If he was any good. Yeah.
Right. So let's go to Leyland Secco, writing for The Guardian. Con man who swindled, get this, guys, $175 million in this massive psychic fraud scheme, just got sentenced to 2 years. The demographic of his victims, largely elderly.
Seeing it more and more since, I mean, it's never not been a thing, but people running scams on the elderly, I think since COVID has really taken an uptick.
The U.S. Postal Service, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, excuse me, Doc, got him, and they also worked in conjunction with the Department of Justice. He was doing this for quite some time, and it was similar to some of the things that we've seen prosperity theologians and televangelists do. So his company, which has a weird name, InfoJest Direct Marketing, what they would... Right, yeah, InfoJest.
Does that mean like jokey information, or is it like ingest and information as a portmanteau?
I think it's like a Reader's Digest of information is what they're trying for.
Bite-sized information. Goes down easy.
I don't know. It sounds like a really non-legit business name.
I know, but it just makes you think of info. You jest, you know, like that's.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And
it makes me think they need to get Kim Wexler and Jimmy McGill and pull a sandpiper on this dude.
Why not? I think, I agree with you guys. This strategy or this grift is, unfortunately, as we said just a second ago, it's pretty common. They played the numbers game like a pickup artist. They sent a ton of letters that purported to be individualized. Now, a lot of us in the U.S. have received, we receive junk mail, on a weekly basis, right? Where you'll be able to tell that it's junk mail because it'll say something like Walton Goggins or current resident.
Yeah, or it'll say non-transferable, open immediately. Mm-hmm. You don't want to miss out on what's in here,
Mm-hmm. Your car's extended warranty is in jeopardy.
Right. Final notice from Kansas City Steaks. All right, guys. Like, slow your roll. I bought the ribeyes once. So what they would do is send this kind of pseudo personalized stuff to millions of people. And it would appear, if you didn't look closely, that the correspondence was handwritten in cursive from a famous French psychic, Maria Duval. And it would pose to the reader that you have, quote, an opportunity to achieve great wealth and happiness with the psychic's assistance, as long as you give us a little bit of money for what they called a, quote, astral clairvoyant forecast. And so
the opportunity, much like the pursuit of happiness.
Yes, just so. And so let's say 99 people receive these, one person responds. It's still enough to justify the grift. If a person responds, they make an initial payment, and then they get dozens and dozens of additional letters, all seemingly personalized, all requesting additional fees, and then sometimes asking you to mail in personal items like finger and palm prints, photos of yourself, locks of your hair. And this would help them conduct additional personalized rituals and astrological services. And there I'm quoting from the indictment from the DOJ.
Man.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, there's also an interview with Patrice Runner, and his interview, which you can read on thewalrus.ca, talks in depth with the guy. And his argument, even post-sentencing, is that he never violated the law in his mail business. And his thing was, look, if people were not satisfied, they could always ask for their money back. His specific quote was, maybe it's not moral. Beat me here, Doc. Maybe it's not moral. Maybe it's bullshit, but it doesn't mean it's fraud.
Of course not.
Okay. I know what it is when I see it.
Right.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he's been doing this for a while. He had been found guilty of running scams previously, not once, but twice in Canada. In 1991, a company in his name got fined for falsely advertising clairvoyant services, all to predict winning lottery numbers. So I don't know about anybody here. Maybe it's true. Maybe clairvoyance or prognostication is a real psychic power. But if someone in the mail is like, hey, man, slide me a couple bucks and I'll give you the winning lottery numbers, I don't know. That's a bit suspicious. People fell for it. He got in trouble. He got fined the equivalent of just a little bit north of $31,000 in the U.S. Fast forward 9 years. It's the year 2000. He has another company that gets fined the equivalent of $362,000 in Quebec for selling BS weight loss products. So this guy's kind of got a track record, right?
Guys, I was super bummed that I missed the supplements episode from being on the road, but I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure that you discuss some scams of this nature in that episode, right?
Yeah, we had a listener write in just as we were going to record who had thanked us for that episode coming out, and they knew, just like we said on air, they knew it would have to be a continuing series. So we're going to get to nootropics next. We're going to do, what else, Matt? We got a couple of others we had to hit up.
The mushrooms one.
The mushrooms, yes.
I forget the name already because I'm not looking at notes or thinking about it, but there's a term.
Yeah.
Well, there's a term for adaptogens, I think is the term.
Adaptogens, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy is not selling any of that. He is, to your point, Noel, he is selling snake oil. Absolutely.
But isn't the issue too that a lot of that stuff, it's easy-ish to get around FDA guidelines by saying something's not for, oral use, in the same way that like people were selling those lab chemicals and things like that could get you really, really high, but somehow were able to be sold in tobacco shops. It just seems like this stuff is rife for fraud to not know what exactly is in it.
Yeah, the FDA is unfortunately very much reactive rather than proactive when it comes to the world of supplements, at least in this country. And they're in a pickle because they can't, these supplements are not subject to the same rigors that a drug would be subject to because they are supposedly part of the natural food supply. So you can't tell someone not to sell concentrated vitamin C. That's one of the examples that we use because, what's next? Are you going to tell them they can only buy so many oranges per month? There's not really a way around it.
My kid asked me a really funny question yesterday. They really discovered they love vitamin water, the zero sugar kind, and asked me if it was possible to overdose on vitamins if they drank more than 2 vitamin waters in a day. And I said, I think it's going to take more than that, but yes, it is possible.
It is possible. It is. Oh, and for everybody checked out that supplements episode, vitamin B3 is niacin. We're talking about, we did some improv with niacin.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah,
don't people take niacin to, like, it makes you sweat or something, and people think that it'll get you out of a drug test or it'll pass a drug test for you if you take a bunch of niacin? I just remember that from back in the day, back when, me and friends of mine were worried about passing drug tests. I never did it, but I had some friends who were like, I just took a bunch of niacin and it made me turn red and sweat all the toxins out.
And Scientology also uses a niacin overdose or vitamin B overdoses in some of their rituals. The best way to try to, you can't really successfully fool a drug test, like a urine test, but you can go for what you could consider a chemical mistrial, which is if you drink enough water, then what's going to happen is the test will come back and maybe the science has changed. And the people at the lab will say, well, this guy, for some reason, drank so much water that this test is invalid. And then hopefully that'll get you the window of time if you are doing that. And eventually, like so many people trying to run a drug test grift, Runner himself gets caught. He has made millions of dollars. He was an international resident living in Switzerland, France, Costa Rica, Spain, the Netherlands. This conviction was a long time in coming. Law enforcement had been on the case from 2014, beginning in 2014. There were extradition negotiations in Spain. He was arrested in Ibiza, and he was eventually flown to New York. Other people have been linked to this scam. They've all pled guilty. And Runner, I thought you'd like this typical con man fashion, before the trial, he said he did not have money to pay for a lawyer. I used to live like a rock star. Wasn't cautious enough. I thought this mail order business would be forever.
That was a quote.
That was a quote. That's a quote from his interview in a New York detention center with the walrus.
This would be forever.
Yeah,
poor guy.
And there's more to discuss here. This is all kind of like a setup for a question we want your help with, folks. 1-833-STDWYTK, conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com. Do you believe there should be an upper age limit on voting? Past a certain physical age, should people be allowed to vote? We're just going to drop that mic here, and then we'll go to an ad break. We'll be back with more strange news. Can't wait to hear from you.
And we've returned. Ben, that question that you just dropped at the end, I don't want to muddy the waters or anything, but I think that is very interesting. It's never quite occurred to me. I could see how it could become problematic for certain Americans, being like, that's ageist. You can't rob me of my God-given right to vote. I'm an American citizen and I deserve to be a part of the democratic process. But I would argue maybe there are some folks at a certain age that, given certain circumstances, maybe shouldn't be able to. But maybe that's a hot take and people are going to yell at me about that. But I really do want to know what people think. But moving on to other not so hot takes, I think I don't know if the jury's out exactly. There was a time where a discussion of the rollout of the Tesla Cybertruck was kind of relegated to, let's wait and see what'll happen, with a lot of naysayers. And, there were certainly some red flags when Elon Musk trotted this thing out, I believe back in 2019 when he announced it at I believe it was a trade show of some kind, where, he shot at it with a bow and arrow. They shot at it with handguns, tried to prove that the windows were indestructible by having someone smash it, and totally smashed. Also, handguns definitely pierced the the stainless steel doors. A lot of promises, a lot of features that were overpromised and under-delivered or not delivered at all. I think in the original prototype that was rolled out, there was like a ramp for accessibility that would unfurl from the back. That's not in the model that's now shipping out to folks, being delivered. He promised there to be a built-in air compressor that had something to do with tapping into the air suspension system. That would certainly be convenient if you wanted to inflate the extra inflatable tent that you can get. That is, of course, an add-on. Don't have an exact dollar amount on that, but that is not part of the model that is now being delivered. And again, also the whole bulletproof promises and indestructible promises, off-road abilities, things like that. Well, we're starting to really see a lot of those chickens coming home to roost, let's say, and they're not particularly happy chickens or roosters or whatever. As the rollout of delivery has taken place, a good 4 years after the product was announced, also at a much, much higher ticket price than was originally announced. I think he said the base model was going to be around $40,000. But now it is proven to be more like $60,000. And it's one of these things where these kind of Tesla fanboys placed their orders, I believe, not even knowing what the final price was going to be. To get in that line and to get in that queue, you had to just kind of sign your life away and promise that you were going to buy one for whatever it ended up costing, which is, I think now for the base model in the neighborhood of $60,000. So good bit over what was promised there as well. Well, now it appears that deliveries have been halted for what Tesla claims will be only about 7 days due to a very, very serious problem beyond the problems that I just mentioned. We're going to talk about some more as well, but let's just get this one out of the way. The accelerator pedal has a tendency, and has been reported in multiple cases with folks that have gotten their Cybertrucks delivered, the ones at least that were able to drive it, because some of them have ceased to function after moments on the road, multiple stories of that. But the accelerator pedal, you would think that it would be some kind of software glitch or some kind of other, mechanical issue. It's almost comical how just kind of rinky-dink the nature of this problem is. So it's not like it's being, all of a sudden going into autopilot mode and the pedal is, it's accelerating without me wanting to. No, it is much simpler and much stupider than that. Apparently there is a kind of slide-on cover that goes over the pedal, which is just a machined piece of steel. Like, it's very thin. The whole car really, leans into this whole minimal thing. And the cover can come dislodged and kind of poke up further than the length of the actual accelerator, and then literally just get caught under the carpet. The kind of surrounding carpet molded kind of material around there. At which point, as one Inside EVs article pointed out, it becomes a 6,800-pound land missile. Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy, a video that went viral on TikTok and was shared all over the internet showed a person explaining this exact malfunction or this design flaw. And they showed the little piece that kind of can come dislodged. They actually had removed it, revealing just the piece of steel underneath. When they put it back on, they showed how easy it was able to kind of slide up with the force of your foot and then get caught under the piece of, surrounding material right at the very top. If you can picture a regular car where, there's kind of carpeted body kind of material down there, this has sort of a little lip at the top. And if you put your pedal to the literal metal or the carpet, as it were, and this thing slides up, it gets stuck. It gets jammed under there at full acceleration. And there's been reports of individuals experiencing this on the road. One where a person was not able to brake. Apparently I don't know if this is a separate glitch or what, but the brake wasn't doing any good because the pedal was so far down, I guess. And this person just had to slam into a light post. We've been hearing things about issues with crash testing on these where I did not realize this, but apparently it's a lot of the companies that really pride themselves on, showing and sharing their crash test data do so they can get really good consumer reports reviews. Yes. And really good safety reviews. And they go above and beyond because of that very reason, so they can sell it as a feature. But the minimum amount of crash testing, you guys have been, I'm sure you've run into this on car stuff, isn't nearly as high a bar as some of these companies are setting for themselves.
No, it's kind of like when you learn the famous example we always trot out that at one point in time, the U.S. government said, all right, you can have some rat poop in cereal. They kind of did the same thing with crash testing. And obviously, because a recall is a massive cost in terms of finance and in terms of reputation for a manufacturer. They are themselves incentivized to game out every single possible problem before somebody buys the first car, right, that they're going to sell of a model. And unfortunately, no matter what you do, you can't be 100% accurate in these things. And there are indeed some just inherent structural problems with certain types of vehicles, right? Like some vehicles are way more likely, just because of the way they're built, to flip at a sharp turn, right? And
that's known. People talk about that with a Jeep, but people go in eyes open, knowing that this is certainly a trade-off. Like, I'm going to get this sweet, road warrior-esque vehicle, knowing that it might not be as safe as, say, a Sonata or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, did y'all see the recent testing that was done on guardrails and electric cars in general?
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Where, because of the added weight of those huge batteries, most electric cars that they tested will just go straight through a guardrail like it's not there.
Land missile again.
Well, yeah. So just imagine all the things that guardrails sometimes protect, like, I don't know, a giant drop off or something, and a big heavy vehicle just.
Why don't we add a couple of extra 1,000 pounds of stainless steel to that formula, Matt? That sounds fun.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, okay, that's the news. That's sort of the skinny in terms of like what the latest is. They have stopped, not production, of course. They have stopped delivering. So they're going to figure this out. Unclear as to what this means for the folks that already have received their cars. And I was just going to point out, too, like this is such a unique situation because of the kind of clout that Tesla has. It's very different than no one's signing up like this for the next, Ford Focus. I mean, it's just so there's a lot of people just rolling the dice on this and signing up, and now they're having their vehicle delivered after they've already signed a contract that's, forcing them to buy it, and they can't get out of it. They also won't allow you to resell it in less than, I believe, a year, and that's sort of, I guess, their attempt at not diluting whatever the market, I guess, or having people flip them for a lot of money because they're so sought after. But another theory there is they don't want to give the impression that people are just selling these things like, to get rid of them because they're, nightmarish. Some of the other issues that we've seen include, like, there was a viral video of one of these being driven on a beach and immediately just totally getting log jammed, or beached. Literally like a whale, like a beached Tesla. And they were promoted as being these off-road vehicles. And there's other videos showing people using them in off-road situations and just absolutely getting having to slow to like a snail's pace. They did a bunch of big promo kind of things early on about how much it can tow. That may well be true, but it doesn't really matter how much a vehicle can tow if it doesn't, roll with consistency. Another thing too is apparently the design, which is, sleek and minimal and all these like kind of sharp corners, are actually quite sharp. To the point where you could cut yourself on the edges of this vehicle. Not to mention I believe it's called the frunk, which is really embarrassing to say. I don't like that one bit. Is the front trunk. It has this kind of, very futuristic kind of rolling out sort of lid that sort of telescopes into the vehicle. They promoted that if there were anything in the way in the front, it would immediately, go back. It wouldn't, like an elevator door kind of. But apparently that does not apply to the sides. And someone inserted a carrot into the sides of one of these frunks that was immediately sliced in half. Clean, like a guillotine. It's being described by some of these EV blogs as guillotine-like. Not to mention the battery life is apparently quite bad. And also they're promising, an extended life battery. But Matt, to your point, the extended life battery, which doesn't even exist yet, would take up way more space and be way heavier than the battery that comes with it stock. So I don't know, guys. The NHTSA, did I get that right? National Highway Traffic Safety Administration are getting in the mix. They have entered the chat, specifically concerning this defect regarding the accelerator pedal. Haven't made any comments about the other stuff, which does seem slightly less immediately life-threatening. But some of them absolutely could be, especially. I also saw a video of like someone got stuck inside of one of these because it forced them to do a software update, and they wouldn't allow them to open the doors, and it wouldn't let them leave the car until the software update was done. Things like that. And none of this is boding well for Tesla's stock price, which is down significantly. And Tesla also just had to lay off 10% of its workforce. Likely because of some of the issues regarding the rollout, because, we got to remember, Tesla hasn't updated their standard, sedan type models. And I want to say going on at least 5 years. It might be more. You guys are more car guys than me. And this was kind of, Elon Musk's pet project. And he was doing this instead of, rolling out some more minor updates. That's sort of what he does. He takes big swings. Say about him what you will. He definitely does take big swings, but it does seem like he doesn't always, if not most of the time, have the actual research and development and true innovation to back up his promises. I don't know, guys. Any thoughts here? This is a ongoing thing, but it does seem that the people that are having these issues are still kind of in the camp of Elon. They're still saying that you know what, we're still on board. We're happy to be, I guess, these beta testers.
I have to say this does get perilously close to the old trope of separating art from the artist, but there are numerous good things about the Tesla car company. I'm also still, I'm also still always thinking about how for a long time, the big three auto manufacturers in the United States would successfully conspire to buy out or shut down competitors outside of their triumvirate.
Sure.
So like shout out to Preston Tucker and the Tucker 48. But then also, so like the idea of creating a new car manufacturer is first off wild, and it's super ambitious. It's super difficult. One thing I can say in terms of, because you guys know me, I always like silver linings, positivity. One thing we can say is that Tesla has really shaken up the monopolistic, well, not monopolistic, but the dirty grip that car dealership models have between the manufacturer and the consumer. So being able to buy a car directly from the company is pretty cool. And I hope that becomes more common, despite whatever problems occur with these specific vehicles.
Well, it makes it a bummer, doesn't it? That like he's done what you could argue is a really great kind of, I hate to use the word, but disruptive thing for traditional auto manufacturing, who we know, if you've seen the film, the documentary, I believe it was called Who Killed the Electric Car? There's been talk about conspiracies. I mean, decades and decades of collusion in order to kind of quash that kind of technology and just make it prohibitive, to have these cars on the road. So now we have reached kind of a high watermark in terms of, people's desire for these kinds of vehicles, the infrastructure for them. A lot of that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been for Tesla. So I'm with you, Ben. It just sucks that the guy's got such a horrible bedside manner and public persona, and I don't know, probably private persona. I'm just not a huge fan that he is the figurehead. Apparently, a lot of people are turning in their Tesla just because they find it embarrassing to be associated with Elon Musk and with the company. But there are other manufacturers coming, to the table, and it could just mean that they're going to be the ones that are going to kind of take over the space.
You think a bunch of people turned in their Volkswagens when that whole scandal broke?
No, some people in the racing community did.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it's so weird to have a company that's, I guess, so tied to its owner or controller, maybe, or, the persona of a human being, or any company that's so tied to the persona of a human being that it would fail or win based on how that person is perceived.
Well, but it's you typically CEOs don't like to be that public. And, Elon Musk literally bought a social media company so he could, be as public as humanly possible. He loves being out there, and he just seems to be going further and further into kind of turning certain people off, especially considering that the folks that are first to market for these types of electric vehicles are going to be pretty liberal type folks, who maybe are into green living and things like that. Maybe people live on the West Coast, much more likely to be left leaning. And he is just quite the opposite. So he's really alienating his base of customer, which I find really confusing. But I guess he just doesn't know how to not be unfiltered. So the NHTSA has not officially launched an investigation yet, but they are aware of the issue, and they are looking into it and seeking more information. And meanwhile, folks who have been waiting for these Cybertrucks for 4 years are going to keep waiting. So I don't know if you guys don't have anything to add. I think that's a fine place to leave it for now.
Drive safe, everybody.
I mean, really?
Can we get more cars that have like a modified headlight structure the way the Cybertruck has, like just a line instead of two big old headlights? Let's get more of those. I
mean, I'm with you, Matt, but another complaint is that the headlights are like way too bright. I think a lot of modern cars the headlights are really bright.
Bring back the Tucker. It had the headlight that in the middle. It had the headlight that moved with the steering wheel.
A searchlight. Yeah. That's
brilliant.
Cool.
It was so cool. All right,
come on.
That's my bit.
Come on, and just aim them lower. That's all.
There you go. Yeah, we don't need those blasting in our eyes. And the last thing I was going to say, though, is the whole indestructible quality of it and the stainless steel. Apparently, this steel does stain and develops rust spots. And they recommend in the literature for the vehicle to clean off any corrosive material immediately, including bird poop, because it can actually apparently permanently damage the finish, or I guess lack thereof. It doesn't really have a finish. That's sort of the point. But also been hearing things about panels being misaligned, causing leakage, and apparently it makes them really, really noisy if they're not aerodynamic like they're supposed to be. It causes like wind whipping, kind of. If you ever had like a window cracked and one up, that apparently it sounds like that inside of these like all the time if the panels are misaligned. So sorry for saying that stuff out of order. I thought it was worth mentioning, but definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm interested to see how the Highway Traffic and Safety Administration responds. For now, let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and be back with another piece of strange news.
And we're back. Guys, I wanted to announce this because it's going to be like maybe a marker in time that my son hears at some point. Yesterday, he tested for his yellow belt and he passed, and in about
congratulations, bro.
Yeah, in about 2 hours he's got a belt ceremony that I'm going to go to. So I'm really excited.
Congrats.
Has he broken the board yet, or is that a little later?
The big boards come later. They let you break a board to earn I think it's when you earn your white belt.
Okay.
And that's just to kind of get you into the program as an initiation. Later you have to do the big like actual board breaking, and it hurts. So now he's got to train how to let himself feel pain, which, dealing with pain is a big deal.
It's a very important lesson to learn in this life. Yeah.
I'm excited about it. And just one other thing I want to say before we get going. We are not sponsored by Walton Goggins in any way. Consummate actor Walton Goggins, though I'm certain you guys, if he called us and was like, hey, can I sponsor the show? We'd be down, right?
Walton, dude, seriously. How good is he in the new Fallout show?
That's what I was going to talk about.
Unbelievable. Love it.
Look, if you ever hear this, The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, Justified, Vice Principals, and now Fallout, come on. Oh, Righteous Gemstones. Don't forget that. Baby Billy.
Baby Billy's bobble bunkers.
Anyway, not sponsored, just awesome. So let's jump to our news. Guys, one of the stories I want to talk about today happened, or at least I read about it today. The other one happened in I think it was like early March, but I'm just adding it to this list because it's so related. It's ridiculous and strange. So let's begin in Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. I'm going to tell you about two people who were written about in USA Today by Mike Snyder and Grace Tucker. Those are the writers of the story. The two people are Laureen and Karen. Laureen is 55. Karen is 66. They live in a place called Ashtabula. Ashtabula? Somebody from Ohio will tell us how to pronounce that correctly. It's just outside of Cleveland. They are currently being charged with some strange stuff. So let's get into what they did before we tell you what they're charged with. These two women allegedly, according to Ashtabula Police Chief Robert Stell, found Douglas Lehman, who they lived with. This is an 80-year-old man. They found him dead in the home that they share, on March 4th. After they found him, they got another friend, these two women. They put his dead body, in his car, and they drove that car to a bank where they withdrew an undisclosed amount of money from his account, Weekend at Bernie's style. Full on Weekend at Bernie's style.
Like propped up? With sunglasses on, presumably?
Yeah, listen, this is from the police chief again. Quote, "It is further alleged that Doug's body was placed in the vehicle in such a manner that he would be visible to the bank staff in order to make this withdrawal, because they had done this before. The bank allowed them to take money out as long as they were accompanied by Doug."
And there was that precedent set already at that point, right? And then to say, well, he's an elderly gentleman, so maybe he's taking a quick doze.
Yeah, maybe that's it. And we're just, we brought him with us. We're taking some money out for him. I don't know. I think it could have gone a different way for the two women, even though this is a really weird wrong thing to do.
Mhm.
They took his dead body, his corpse, to the Ashtabula County Medical Center emergency room, and they just left him there. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't say who he was. They didn't do anything. They just left his body there.
But they clearly felt bad shortly after, right?
Well, I guess so. Maybe one of them, it doesn't say in the article I read from USA Today, but one of the women contacted the medical center later and gave them the basic info, the rundown, let's say, on Doug. And that's when police officers went to the residence that the two women shared with Doug. And the women said, he died there. He died here.
So instead of calling the police or first responders, like instead of calling 911 at the house, we just drove him over there, which was ethics aside, just from a production standpoint, that was their misstep.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If this was a bank heist, which it kind of was in a weird way.
Did they have any claim to his funds for common law? Like, I don't know. Was there anything like that? Like because they lived together or any of the time that they lived together, the nature of the relationship?
This is a very small story that I found on one of those places that we like to go to, the subreddit Offbeat.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all, honestly, guys, this is all I found about it. I don't know anything else besides one of the people faces additional drug charges associated with being picked up that day.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what that means or what it has. They had a preliminary hearing back in March. We haven't been following it. And the whole reason we're even talking about this one is because this feels like Weekend at Bernie's bank heist light to me compared to the next story.
Mm-hmm.
The next story. Oh, I will. Here we go. The next story comes to us via The Guardian. And this was written today as we record this on April 17th by Tom Phillips. Here we go. We're going to tell you about Erica de Souza Vieira, who, she did this. She had a similar idea. She wheeled her, quote, lethargic-looking uncle into a bank. This is in Brazil. And the moment that the two of them entered the location, clerks were looking at them a little funny. There was a remark made, "I don't think he's well. He doesn't look well at all." This person that she had wheeled in, Paulo Roberto Bragg, was 68 when she wheeled him in, and it appeared, at least to people who observed them at the bank, that he was deceased. And it looked like he was being propped up in this wheelchair in order for Erica to go in and secure a loan.
Matt, were you looking for a theme today? Or did it just happen organically?
I wasn't. I saw this in The Guardian, and I was like, well, that's a weird one, but that's not enough to do anything on. Jumped to Offbeat and saw the other news story about the women in Cleveland, and I was like, all right, we're Weekend at Bernie's. Bernie's-ing it. But yeah. The whole thing went down. So the bank clerks, after this woman brought her dead uncle in to secure a loan, they alerted the authorities, and the authorities immediately arrived. And they're like, yeah, ma'am, he's dead. You can't secure a bank loan in his name. He is dead. Mm-hmm. And also, why is he dead? How is he dead? And like, what happened? And according to Erica's story, he was alive as they were entering the bank and became deceased sometime in the moments.
I was about to say, what if the response? If I'm being callous about it, the response would be like, my God, he's dead. I miss him so much. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't noticed. I don't buy that. But you're right, Ben. It is certainly possible, if not plausible.
There's one thing, though. We've got to, if this is okay with you, Matt, I think we've got to mention one of the most darkly humorous parts of this disturbing story in that Guardian article that we're reading. Here's how the police get alerted. Quote, at one point in the images, which bank workers began filming after smelling a rat, one suspicious employee apparently comments on Braga's pallid complexion, and Vieira replies, that's just what he's like, and then tries to place a pen in his dead hand.
Oh, come on, buddy, you got this. Here you go.
Which, makes you wonder, like, again, I think, like you rightly pointed out, this person has a story where she's saying he was alive previously, right? And he died at some point without my knowledge. like while we were in the bank. But you would think putting a pin in the hand of a corpse, I think even without being a doctor, you could tell if the hand is like unresponsive.
Maybe
right?
he was just kind of an unresponsive dude. Maybe he was just real low energy in life. I don't know.
Is this guy dead?
Questions.
That's just what he's like.
That's just what he's like. I love that. And Matt, do we have any information about like what happened next? Like a coroner to determine the time of death to see if the story is actually, lined up with the truth?
I have not seen any further reporting on this yet. Again, this information came out today as we're recording.
Know. Surely they can determine that to see if, how long this person had been dead. At that point, I think this woman's got some splaining to do.
Well, yeah. There's one thing I wanted to ask you guys. Inside this article, it mentions livor mortis, LIVOR mortis, which in my head was a spelling error for rigor mortis when I first saw it because it's spelled so similarly, LIVOR mortis. Mm-hmm. But this is actually, it has to do with the coloration of a person's skin after they've died. Because
the blood's no longer moving, right?
Well, it's where the blood pools in the body, like depending on how they're oriented when they die, which is a way to, determine cause of death often. Rigor mortis is associated with the stiffening of the limbs and the body after death. Kind of for the same reason. Well, for similar reasons, where how blood works in our bodies to keep us all, movable and softish, but all I don't know. It's weird. Anyway,
to keep us all fresh baked.
There you go.
Supple,
there you go.
Squishy.
I think about that pretty often. To the death is something that comes for the vast majority of human beings so far, and it's strange how we never really. I think a lot of people don't appreciate how much work your body does without your conscious knowledge. Like your heart doesn't take a day off, right?
Nah.
And the circulatory system, all your organs are so unappreciated. So like the next time you do something that is kind of bad for your body, just think of those folks. You know what I mean? Think of them basically like the staff. If you drink a beer, just thank your liver for its service and so on.
It's too scary, dude. When I start to think about that, I start to picture what my insides look like, and then the blood moving through my body, and it freaks me out, you guys.
The spice must flow. If you stop the spice flow within your body, it's over.
Do you ever think about how, like, the fact that you are basically animating a skull right now, if you're alive and you talk out loud?
It freaks me out.
Well,
we're just ghost haunting houses.
I'm animating meat that's wrapped around a skull.
Yeah. You're a computer program.
Stop it.
In a battle.
He's making these rictus grin faces. No, I don't like it.
Yeah, we're all battle mechs, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's cooler. Guys, well, these kind of went by fast. Oh, by the way, the police there in Brazil are investigating whether or not this person is indeed the niece of this deceased person.
I had one thing to add, just about both of these stories. I'm certainly not condoning either of these actions, but do you know what a pain in the ass it is to get a deceased loved one's money? If there's no will, or if like all of the craziness you have to go through, probate and all of this stuff, even if there is a will. When my mother passed away, we did the whole estate thing well before she passed, not knowing that her end was going to be sooner than we had realized. Glad that we did it, because I can't imagine what it would have been like without it. But even with me as the sole executor of her entire estate, I had to jump through so many hoops just to get like $500 in some bank account that she forgot about, that wasn't listed as part. I mean, insane amounts of red tape. So again, not condoning any of this, but I do wonder if they were just kind of trying to take a shortcut, and maybe they were actually due some of this money, but needed it real quick and didn't want to have to wade through all of the bureaucracy it would take to get it.
Possible. I mean, especially too, considering that I think it's safe to say, I could speak for all of us and say this is a terrible thing that happens, often at one of the worst parts of your life. You lose a loved one and you get just flooded with paperwork, and there are actually funds, at least here in the US, there are institutions, organizations where they have held somebody's money that hasn't been claimed, and that person may have living relatives. They just simply are so inundated with all this other stuff that they have to deal with that they don't think about, like your point you're making, Noel, like things can slip through the cracks. You've got to organize a funeral, a memorial service. You've got to take care of interment or cremation or what have you. You got to navigate a will. These things can be forgotten, but
everything costs you too.
Yeah.
I mean,
but guys, in the case of Laureen and Karen, they're living with an 80-year-old roommate who's not related to him. And
I still stand by the question about common law. Like, would any of that have applied? Like, we don't know enough about their situation. Maybe they were a throuple,
Maybe. Well, either way, they both got charged with gross abuse of a corpse.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even before the corpse, like the investigation might find that this was a person maybe being kind of like held hostage or taken advantage of. That's all too common in the world of elderly care. There have been some just
elder abuse,
terrifying stories about that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to go autobiographical, but I've seen this kind of stuff firsthand. In some situations, there's a person who we've read about it on the show. There is a person who has a consistent Social Security or pension income, and they become a prisoner in their own house, right? And sometimes they die, and the person taking advantage of them just puts them in a shed or just doesn't bother to report it. And those folks can get away for years and years.
Dude, I mean, not to make it about, I saw a TV show once, but you mentioned Walton Goggins and The Shield. I've been rewatching that recently. There was an episode where there was a complaint from a neighbor about noise in the backyard. It turns out there was an old man chained up in the backyard who was being held by a son and just cashing his Social Security checks and just, kept him literally out of doors, chained up. And I know it's a TV show, but I know as well that shows like that and the Shield in particular take these, from real police reports a lot of times. So it's certainly a thing that happens.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I told you guys about the time I saw Walton Goggins at a Flying Biscuit, right?
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I think I told you. Sorry,
Dang,
I'll do it real
that.
quick. I'll do it real quick.
Yeah.
Way back in the days of the Shield, when I looked at this person's face, I did not see Walton Goggins. I didn't know who that was. I saw Shane from the Shield, and
real bastard.
Well, I just happened to be walking in to the Flying Biscuit, and sat there at the bar was this person that I immediately recognized, and just kind of gave one of these little nods, like, hey man, and he just goes, hey. And I just walked to the table, and I just thought, man, Shane from the Shield is my friend now. I think we're friends.
He was a champion hog hollerer.
Yes.
All that.
I just remembered when you said he's a champion hog holler. We told that whole story.
I've not
before.
heard the part. No, he came up some other way. I've never heard about you meeting him. I've never heard that story. I just remember him talking on Fresh Air with Terry Gross about being a champion hog hollerer.
This all sounds familiar to me, guys.
Well, we do a lot of these episodes, guys.
This has happened before. It's going to happen again.
Hog hollering is a storied and legitimate profession. And if you walk away from tonight's strange news with nothing else, walk away with that.
Exactly.
No, disagree. Walk away with this. There's another Boeing whistleblower you need to know about. Sam Salehpour, SAMSALEHPOUR. Make sure you keep your eyes and ears out for this person, and let's all make sure that if he shows up, in a truck with a quote self-inflicted gunshot wound, we're all paying attention and yelling about it. Okay.
Or suffocated in the frunk of a Cybertruck, perhaps.
Yeah, I withdraw my support of hog hollering then.
Why?
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We cannot wait to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. You may be part of the show, especially in a future listener mail program. Well, how do I do that? Is it as difficult as signing up for a bank loan? Good news. It's much easier. We try to be easy to find online.
That's right. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook, where we have our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy, on X, FKA, Twitter, and on YouTube, where we have video content rolling out every single week, including things like episode recaps and updates and sketches and you name it. There's something on there for everybody. Please do give it a subscribe and smash that bell Whatever, the YouTube thing. You can also find us at the Handle Conspiracy Stuff Show on Instagram and TikTok.
Washington is in Hollywood, you guys. In about 3 weeks, you're going to get the big finale. I think we're all excited about that one. So keep watching. Sure keep watching. If you want to call us, call 1-833-STDWYTK. That is our voicemail system. When you call in, you've got 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool nickname and let us know if we can use that name and your voice on the air. If you've got more to say than can fit in that message, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the folks who read every single email message we get 24 hours a night, 7 nights a week. All you have to do is drop us a line. We all get to see it. Take us to the edge of the rabbit hole. We will do the rest. Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.